Hello everyone and welcome to Tome of Uselessness. Dan here, doing a little solo recording about Avatar, the James Cameron ones, not The Last Airbender, or Legend of Korra. But I've never really been a big Avatar guy. I saw the original one in 2009 when it came out. Maybe twice, I think I want to say. I didn't see it in theater. I'm a 3D hater. If you listened to the show, I've probably said that before. But, so yeah, I never saw it in theater. I, saw it on a TV with some friends. And, it was like, oh, cool, it was fine. It's obviously a technical achievement and everything like that. But, yeah, I was never really, into it. And then, of course, there was huge delays and etc. until we got the second one and the third one. Just recently, of course. So I was kind of like, you know what? Maybe I should check them out. I didn't see The Way of Water in theater, nor the first one, as I said. And so I thought I would check out Fire and Ash in theater to try to, get the big screen experience and the big sound, as it were, because I don't have a 7.1 digital sound system in my house, and I really like sound effects. So I rewatched Avatar 09 and then watched the next day, or a day later, The Way of Water, and then I went and watched Fire and Ash the day after that. Similar how I did, I watched Black Panther and then the first Infinity War. I did that. I did a back-to-back screening or showings, so then it was super fresh in my mind. Because I didn't realize that The Way of Water came out in 2022. It seems like it came out last year, but again, that could just be pandemic brain effect. But I kind of wanted to talk about all three of the movies, my feelings and thoughts about the whole series so far. I'm not going to get really into the whole technical aspects of it because there's YouTube videos and behind the scenes stuff and featurettes on even on Disney Plus now, and I'm sure DVD extras and all that kind of good stuff. So I've seen clips as well, like many people, but I haven't really done a big deep dive into it. But it's obviously impressive. I'm sure I'm going to say that again multiple times. But let's go all the way back. Avatar 09 comes out. It's written and directed by James Cameron, which the others so far are not. It had a budget of $237 million. It made, so far in the box office, because of re-releases and everything, it's made $2.92 billion. I think it's the most successful movie, box office-wise, ever. And, big cast, but we got Sam Worthington playing Jake Sully, Zoe Saldana playing Neytiri, Sigourney Weaver as Grace, Stephen Lang as Colonel Miles Quaritch, Michelle Rodriguez as Trudy Chacon, I guess is her last name, Giovanni Ribisi as Parker Selfridge, and Joel David Moore as Norm Spellman, our other kind of science character, along with Sigourney Weaver. The score was done by James Horner, who, it was funny when I was rewatching 09, and, at the end credits in particular, the score kind of swells up and everything, and I was like, man, this really sounds like James Horner, or one of those kinds of guys. And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, it is James Horner. And he did a bunch of stuff for Cameron, which I didn't realize he was so kind of one of his guy, almost in a sense. And then when I watched Way of Water, a different name came up, Simon Fraugen. And then that's when I realized James Horner died in 2015. I think he gets partial credit on Way of Water for the score, but not full credit. Maybe inspired by or something like that. So unfortunate there, but good score. I really liked it. But, like many people have pointed out, the story is simple, and James Cameron is good at repackaging a simple story into a larger world kind of a thing, right? We meet Sully. He's a Marine. Was injured in combat or what have you. He's using a wheelchair. His brother dies, and a week before his brother was supposed to go on this mission to Pandora, he gets the call up because they're like, hey, we have an avatar that we created for him. You can take his place, and you get a second chance to get in the action, as it were, and get off Earth. We don't get any depictions of Earth. I think in a deleted scene there's something about Earth, and it's run down, Blade Runner, cyberpunk-esque, but they cut that. So we just kind of cut to, we get Jake Sully narration, and he's just like, yeah, things weren't great. So hey, I'm on Pandora now. And the Avatar program was scientists, and then there's like a military presence, and they're trying to mine unobtainium because it's super valuable on Earth and can do, we don't know, but assume does great stuff. And hey, native population, we want them to move so we can get at a large deposit under their helm. So Jake eventually falls in with the Na'vi, meets Neytiri, and then is like invited to learn their ways, because it is an interesting angle in that like he's military, right? Like he's a jarhead, as he says, he's a Marine, so he's not like, he doesn't come with preconceived notions, again, because of his only a week before he left, and maybe he's heard of Pandora, obviously, but he doesn't know like what's going on, versus like the science avatars are all like, we know everything and blah blah blah, colonialism and etc. Right? Anyway, so they teach him his ways, and he kind of, because he's just willing to kind of go for it, he succeeds at the tasks and blah blah blah, and eventually forms a relationship with Neytiri. And then when it all kicks off, the military finally, or the construction finally reaches the the home tree as it is, and then Jake's like, hey, they sent me here so then you would believe me when I tell you we gotta go. And then they're like, what? You suck. And then they get captured and big battles ensue, and there's like the big rocket attack, and the home tree gets attacked, and then Jake captures like the big the Toruk, which is like the big bird of the sky, becomes Toruk Makto, which is like the rider of death, kind of a thing. I do like the name for for Toruk is Last Shadow, because they're like, it's the last thing you see before he takes you out. Anyway, big battle. Michelle Rodriguez dies. Quaritch gets killed. Sam Worthington eventually, he has to like transfer his consciousness. Previous to that, in an escape, Sigourney Weaver gets killed. They try to transfer her consciousness from her human body to the Avatar host, but it doesn't work because she's too injured. And so now her like spirit and consciousness is like with Eywa, and they're like, we tried, kind of a thing. Eventually it does work with Jake, and Giovanni Ribisi kind of says like, hey, we're gonna be back, which is true. Right? Like, if there's one thing, humans, we don't give up on something when we're like, oh no, a slight setback like this. Also, like, if they're spacefaring, they could just use orbital weaponry if they really wanted to. But there's always lines here and there. They're like, well, we just don't want to wipe out the population because that looks bad. Right? But anyway, yeah, simple rundown of the story. But, obviously this movie was like the tech spectacle, right? Like, and rewatching it even in 2026, which it is incredible. Like, it looks really good. There's a few shots here and there. Like, some of the creatures have kind of like a CG haze to them, especially when there's scenes when they're not interacting with something else, when it's just kind of the creature on its own or in some of its jungle environment. It looks a little too shiny, kind of a thing. Just some of the texturing there. But again, that's 15 years of CG advancement. But when it's like the Na'vi interacting with something, and or when they're with the humans in the battle, like at the end in particular, like, it all looks incredible. Like when the home tree gets knocked over, and like all the airships and everything like that, just awesome. Like, even by today's standards, like, it was like, wow, like that still looks really good. But yeah, it's a good, interesting setup in that you're like, okay, they won the day. People are probably going to come back. Jake's human, but now he's a Na'vi, so he can live on Pandora and, continue a life, kind of a thing. And you're like, hooray, the day was won. And then, yeah, I think the second one was supposed to come out in 2014, but there was just huge delays, and the story got rewritten. I think, I think this is a theory I don't think I'm the first person to say this, but it clearly seems like Way of Water and Fire and Ash were one movie that got split into two movies because the story just became so big. I mean, both the movies are like over 3 hours long. And it's kind of crazy, especially I'll talk a bit about it in Fire and Ash in particular, where it's like, it seems like there are things cut for time, even though this is a 3 hour long movie, and that there's things that you could have cut to expand on other things. So it's just weird. There's some weird structure, especially back to back, but you could clearly tell that they're meant to be watched back to back, because when The Way of Water starts, we got Jake, and he's doing a narration, and we just get kind of a recap of like the time that's passed since they won against the Sky People. He has kids with Neytiri. We find out that there's like some orphans left from the human colony. Spider in particular is the one kid. There's also Grace's avatar had a child, which is played by Sigourney Weaver. So you got teenage Sigourney Weaver running around. And yeah, just kind of recaps some of the story. And then, they're like, oh, there's a new star in the sky and it can only mean one thing. And that's the Sky People are coming back. And then, yeah, the humans return. We see some cool flips and orbital burns. And then they just like scorcher the section and like start landing gear there. So this one, James Cameron has two more writers with him. It's Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver. He directed, of course, this one. This one had a budget of $350 million. So far, that one made $2.33 billion at the box office. But it also came out in 2022. There were still pandemic factors and etc. I think it's had re-releases. But, still an impressive amount of money. There's no doubt about it. It adds in the cast. We have Kate Winslet as Ronal, Cliff Curtis as Tonowari, Edie Falco comes in as General Ardmore, Brendan Cowell comes in as Scoresby, Jermaine Clement, Dr. Garvin, and then the kids, as I mentioned. So Sigourney Weaver plays Kiri, and then we have Natayam, Loak, Took, and then Spider, who is the human child left behind. So he's wearing a mask like the whole time because he can't breathe Na'vi atmosphere. And after the narration, there's like, oh no, the Sky People are back, blah, blah, blah. And then there's just a 1 year jump to then like a raid and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, oh, it would have been, I think for me, especially after I'll kind of go through this, but it's like, I feel like that 1 year period could have been the movie. And then the third movie could have been like the rest of Way of Water. Because what happens is they go on a raid. It goes sort of well, but then his kids almost die. And there is the reveal that there's a clone avatar that was created of Quaritch and his squad. Or not even an avatar, sorry, a clone like Na'vi. And his consciousness was downloaded into it. And it's gonna hunt down Jake and others, mostly Jake. But this was also something that was kind of odd because the consciousness transfer that was done in the first movie was kind of facilitated by Awa, like a planetary internet spirit consciousness. And then they just introduced the fact that that humans also have that technology, so it kind of like lessens that whole fact. Because later in the movie, we find out they're hunting the Tolkun for Amrita, which is it's a gel that they can harvest from the whale's brains that allows humans to be immortal. But you've introduced the fact that they created clone Na'vi, meaning that they could easily create clone humans, and you also have consciousness downloading technology, which means humans can already be immortal. So there's no need for this whale hunt? Really? Like, if again, it's something that can be only accessed by the rich, but then the whale Amrita is also stupid expensive because it creates, gives humans immortality, so only the rich can access it anyway. So it's like, it's a weird factor that I don't think, it's not addressed. I don't think they thought about it. They just introduced the concepts because they're like, yeah, that's what we need for the story. But it's also like, this doesn't need to even, like, what are we doing? We don't even need to kill these whales. That's harder to do than just creating clones. We can just create clones with consciousness transfer technology. But anyway, the movie's not about that. It also introduces the fact that Pandora has an eclipse every day, and that was obviously not factored into or mentioned in the first movie. The planet's shown to have like a day-night diurnal cycle or whatever, but now there's an eclipse every day. Sure. I don't know. That one again, I was like, if that was supposed to be a thing, you should have made it a thing in the first movie. But okay. So, the raid's kind of a botch. Jake's like, dang, there's this squad coming after me. It's Quaritch. We have to leave the forest people. And we're going to go seek sanctuary with the water tribes. So they fly off. They seek sanctuary with the water tribes. Cliff Curtis admittedly looks great as like this water tribe. The Metakia, I believe they're called. Something along those lines. Water person. And Kate Winslet is his wife or partner. Anyway, and then, they grant asylum. And they're like, okay, we got to learn the ways of the water tribe. So this movie is just now the first movie again, but it's the whole family versus just Jake. And, James Cameron famously loves the ocean and ocean creatures and etc. And, like, it is incredible looking. There is no doubt about it that this movie's technology is so far advanced, even from the Avatar 09. It's amazing. Like, the creatures look incredible. The water interaction looks incredible. All the Na'vi. It's just flawless. It's very impressive from a technical aspect. There's a few scenes here or there where the water looks a little too like water simmy when it's crashing against rocks or, here and there kind of thing. But it really is incredible. Like, Weta and ILM and a whole army of effects artists just going to town, which is why it probably cost $350 million. And again, it's also 3 hours long. This one kind of works with its length, though, because although, again, there's a couple things, because what happens is Quaritch and crew, they basically start going around on the planet because they're like, oh, man, we lost him. We don't know where he went. And Kiri interacts with, like, the equivalent of the World Tree. It's like an underwater, see an enemy kind of situation. And she goes into a seizure. So they got some humans that fly over in one of their aircopters to, like, look at her. And they pick that up on radar. So they're like, okay, he's gone to the water tribes. We should hunt him down there. So they're going to village, being like, hey, where's Jake, etc. Spider was captured, and he's kind of along because he doesn't want to help the humans, but he's like, wants to at least be there to, he's translating, and he just wants to kind of like be with the Na'vi. Looking for a way to escape or whatever kind of thing, right? So, yeah, and that's the movie, a lot of the movie. And basically what happens is, like, the kids have already been captured at least once at this point, and I think they get captured, like, 3 more times. Like, it happens too much. And it even happens in the next movie again, where, like I said, watching them back to back, it's like, holy jeez, this beat has been repeated over and over. I think even Took says at one point that she's like, oh no, I'm tied up again or whatever. And it's like, yeah, this has happened too much. But fine. Eventually they catch up. We see there's like a rogue Tulkun that the youngest befriends, and the whales. We see a whale hunt, and it's like, oh, it's as bad as you can think it is. It's a big space whale being hunted, and it sucks. And they're using harpoons and tactics and machines and etc. And the doctor, Jermaine Clements, like, he's like along for it, but he's he's a marine biologist, and he's like, yeah, we harvest the whales, but he's like, but they're smart. They have culture. They have song and language and everything, which then we also find out from the sea people that it's like, yeah, these whales are like super smart and beyond human intelligence, but they are pacifists because they believe that violence begets violence in a deadly spiral. And the reason that there's the outcast Tulkun is he tried to protect his pod by attacking a ship that was whaling. And so they're like, hey, no violence, kind of a thing. It all culminates with a big ship coming in, and then the kids are captured again, Loak being one of them, who was the one that befriended Pyakon. That's the name of the whale, the Tulkun. He sees a gun to Loak and then eventually decides to fight back. And so this stuff, again, all incredible. This is obviously James Cameron's, like I said, is his thing. This whale jumps onto the ship and starts thrashing about, and then there's just pure chaos. And then the battle kicks off. And everything looks great. The ship has to, everyone's trying to abandon ship, and then there's the sea people attacking, and there's creatures, not as many creatures in this scene that aren't being controlled, like in the first movie when they, he appeals to Eywa. In this one, it's just it's just Na'vi and etc. battle. And the ship has to rotate over, and there's turns and captures and non-captures, and everybody's doing cool stuff. And Neytiri and Sully both have their action moments and everything like that. And excuse me. Yeah, eventually they fend off Quaritch. Jake and him end up in the upside down ship, fighting, and it's filling up with water, and he chokes him out, kind of thing. He falls. He's also gonna die, but then Loak finds him, and then Kiri, who we've seen earlier in the movie, because she is, different and can communicate with Eywa differently. She sends bioluminescent fish through the ship. They find everybody. Everybody gets out. Spider finds Quaritch, rescues him, and then leaves him on some rocks because he goes back to the Sully family, and then the day is won. Hooray, kind of thing. Like I said, for me watching it, I was kind of shocked at the number of captures and reversals and what have you, but the time was clearly taken with it. It was just so similar to the first movie. When you watch them in rapid succession, it's very noticeable. Obviously, between 2009 and 2022 is a big gap, so it kind of almost made sense that it was a reintroduction to Pandora and to a new tribe of people. But I feel that 1 year gap could have been the movie where maybe, because it doesn't make sense that when the humans were landing, the Na'vi didn't attack. Jake would have been look, there's one tower, we blow it up, and then they got nothing. They have to send another tower down, and we just blow that up. They could have harassed them enough until maybe the squad gets introduced to be fight back or military presence or something. I don't know. It just seems like it was too easy to get a foothold. But again, not something we got to see. Because then, it just rolls right into the next movie, with the movie being Fire and Ash, 2025, just came out. Of course, same writers, so it was James Cameron, Rick Jaffa, and Amanda Silver, directed, of course, by James Cameron. So this one had a budget of $400 million, and so far as of recording, has made $1.22 billion at the box office. Again, very successful. It's been out, so what is it at this point? Less than 4 weeks, because it came out on the 19th, and it's the 17th today. So, almost a month. But an impressive run. I'm kind of surprised at the amount of money this one cost, because I thought they would have shot most of the stuff at the same time, but I guess maybe just post-production and stuff like that just costing a lot. I don't know, because there was an article recently from James Cameron basically saying oh, hey, I gotta figure out how to get these to cost less, because if I want to continue with the series, even though they're quite successful, it does make kind of sense that you don't want to spend $400 million. But it's I think one way, if you cut out half an hour out of the movie, I'm sure that would save $100 million. Because again, in this one, a lot of people getting captured, and reversal to capture to not capture, and it's just dude, we've done this like 6 times. But yeah, let's let me go through it a little bit here. So it starts, yeah, like straight up right away. It's definitely meant to be watched back to back. We have Quaritch is like, the general's like, hey, you kind of failed, and he's like, no, we can still do the mission. And Spider is the issue. He's living with the Sullys, with the water people, and some air traders come along, and they're basically, Jake's like makes a deal. He's like, okay, look, take Spider to the human base, like the non-sky people human base, like the scientists that remained, because he can't stay here. Like, he could die just because he forgets to, to change his mask or something like that kind of thing. The kids don't want him to go, etc. So he's like, okay, look, we'll all go with the air traders, played by one of the main guys, played by David Thewlis. Took me a bit. It was till the credits, but like the whole time you're looking at him and his speech pattern in particular, I'm like, I recognize him. But he's disguised as a Na'vi through the tech. So they're like, we'll all go. And Sully says to him, because he's Palak is his name. He's like, well, this wasn't the deal. And he's like, hey, look, we'll all go. We'll pull our weight. Plus Neytiri and me, we'll be outriders. We got, flying creatures and etc. And we can help. And he's like, all right. He's like, there's been some raiders and stuff like that. So they get attacked by the raiders, led by Varang, Una Chaplin. And yeah, the ship goes down. The kids get captured, because at the same time, Quaritch locates them, because they're like on the lookout for Spider, kind of a thing, right? And so then he finds them, and it's so kind of oddly told. Basically, the kids get captured. Sully and Quaritch team up with another guy to go rescue the kids, because Spider is Quaritch's child. And so they get captured after, some fighting. And Varang's like, because Varang found the gun and is like, hey, that Loak had, and she's like, show me how to work this gun. And he's like, I can't, it's out of ammo. And they're like, that doesn't make it, we don't know what you're even saying, kind of thing. And but then when Quaritch shows up, he's like, yeah, I'll show you how to use the gun. And so then they do, but it's like, again, just so oddly kind of done, where it's like, I thought you were captured and now you're just standing there talking with her, having a chat. And he's like, yeah, we can just head up out or whatever. Cool scene though. Kiri uses her connection to Eywa to like command plants to like shoot spikes into their captors. So they get away. They're on the run. Spider is dying because his masks and air supply is running out. And then again, Kiri, communing with Eywa and the planet, feeds him one of the seeds, connects him to the soil, and then basically he gets like a mycelium colony built in him so he can breathe Pandoran atmosphere. So he becomes the new MacGuffin, because Quaritch and the humans, Ribisi's back, is like, hey, if he can breathe Pandoran air, because now there's a reveal that the humans don't just want to mine the planet, we want to live here, because Earth sucks. And the planet's only 6 light years away, apparently, or it's a 6-year journey, I don't know, via warp or whatever. So that's a new reveal, that we want to colonize the planet so then we can live on it, but we can't without air mass because the atmosphere is killer to us. But they're like, hey, this kid can somehow live here. So he knew MacGuffin. He gets captured. Same situation. Sully or Quaritch shows up, or Quaritch makes a deal. He's searching around. He can't find them, even though he should technically know where they are. Whatever. He goes to the fire, to the Ash people, meets Varang, and he's like, hey, look, I got guns. I got flamethrowers, which is even cooler than guns to you, because they like, the fire of the mountains, and help me find Spider or Sully, complete my mission, kind of thing. We get a cool reveal from Varang and how like her people lived below like a volcano that went active, and then they all just got wiped out from this volcano, and like there was no help from Awa, so they've kind of like lost their faith, kind of a thing. And they have a very cool, just death cult aesthetic, bone creatures and things like that, and etc. So they team up. They eventually show back up, and then Sully is like, "Hey," to Neytiri, because they're like, "No, we're gonna fight," kind of thing. And he's like, "No, these humans, we're not gonna give up, and if I go, it's what I can do to protect my family." So he gets arrested, as it were, and again, interesting reveal that it's like there's like media there, and they're like human traitor Jake Sully, etc. So we're like, oh, okay, so people know that what kind of happened, or propaganda about like, oh, this human is a traitor to us, etc. But it's like, again, an interesting kind of idea, never explored. We again see Dr. Garvin, and he's the Tolkun. We learn they're gonna have like a spawning gathering ritual, that happens, yearly or quarterly or whatever. And so they're like, hey, we're gonna go hunt the Tolkun at that time. It's gonna be great because it'll just be they'll all like be in this cove. And so Garvin breaks Sully out of jail. Spider also escapes after being given like dog tags. He gets out, and Neytiri at the same time is infiltrating just by coincidence. And so it's a pretty cool sequence. I liked. Oh yeah, because Quaritch and the fire and and ash people show up, and the general's like, you failed, you've gone native, and he's like, no, I captured him, and everything's all good. And so Neytiri uses like their identifier chips and like paints herself to look like an ash person, so then she can just infiltrate the base. And this was weird to me. This was something, again, like I was saying, that like it almost seemed like the kickoff, because Jake's escaping. We learn about the Tolkun situation. Spider's there. Neytiri is there. And then there's an airship attacking, and there's guns and explosions, and this is during the eclipse time, so that they got some kind of cover of night. But as they're escaping, Quaritch and his crew mount up, and they're flying over, and they're like, hey, hold your fire, we're coming in, because we want to capture Jake still for his execution, and Spider, we need him for science. And then Neytiri, they all mount up on Neytiri's flying creature, and then they fly away, and I'm like, all right, then we're gonna have like a chase or something. It just cuts, and then they're in the daytime above a river away from the base. And I was like, those other guys were there, they were chasing them, they would see them. I don't understand. Like, well, why didn't this continue? Because like that would be the escalation almost to like a final battle, because then like other people could show up to like help her and stuff. It just was, again, an odd cut that doesn't kind of follow. It was like they were there, Quaritch was there, Varang was there, they want to take them down, and then they just stopped. What? But okay. And earlier in the movie, Neytiri is like, we should kill Spider, because even though it sucks, if he gets studied and the humans live here, it's gonna be bad. And Sully pushed back on that idea. He's like, no, that's terrible. He's like our son. And then after this chase, he's like, you know what, you're right, we gotta do this. And then there's a moment where Neytiri is washing off the paint and everything, and it all looks like blood and what have you. And so she has the change of heart, and finds him, and then they don't do that. So they're like, we'll figure something out, but we can't kill Spider. Because in the previous movie as well, like she took him hostage because she's just like, he's not my kid kind of thing. Cuts him too. But she has a change of heart in this situation, and they're like, okay, he's gonna become Toruk Makto again. So he goes, finds the Toruk, tells people like, hey, we gotta fight back. They're gonna hunt the Tolkun. Payakan and others, they meet like the Tolkun like elders. We see them, giant whales with like rings and stuff in that. They're all tattooed and everything. And then they have a big like meeting, and they're like, no, we can't do this, blah blah blah. Their speeches and Payakan and etc. And then the whales leave, or the Tolkun leave, and they're like, they're gonna decide, but they don't. But they're no commitment kind of thing. And then next day, time for the big battle, right? Big ship shows up. Similar scenario. They start fighting, etc. They're not doing so good. Kiri eventually goes down, and then Spider and Took join her to commune with like Eywa to like beg for help, right? And then similar to the first movie, creatures eventually show up, like these squid creatures that are like fast moving and deadly tentacles and everything like that. They start wrecking house, really cool. Air creatures again show up, really cool. I do again, like with a Toruk, his design and stuff like that, and he's just grabbing like helicopters because he's so much bigger. He like literally can just grab one of their helicopters and like fling it around and stuff like that. Like the scale part is always fun in these movies because the Na'vi are like bigger, like height wise and what have you. And so eventually when you see them beside a human, like, and just throw them off of something, you're like, oh yeah, they are double our size. Anyway, big battle, all looks great. Eventually, Quaritch, again, there's a capture scenario. They're on the burning ship again, literally the same like the last movie that I just watched the day before. So I was kind of like, what? Again? Neytiri and, they all go after. And there's some fighting, Varang, Quaritch, other people like that. And then eventually Quaritch, because there's like a gravity vortex scenario. So Quaritch, Spider, and Sully end up on some rocks on the gravity vortex. They're fighting, it's pretty evenly matched because they're both kind of injured. And then eventually what happens is the Spider jumps down to try to like help Jake. The rocks shift, and then he's like falling to his doom. Quaritch jumps and grabs him. Jake grabs him. They pull each other up, and then they're just like, what are we going to do now kind of thing. And the rest of the family shows up, and Jake's like, no, don't kill him kind of thing. And then Quaritch jumps into some fire and water, and we don't see his fate kind of thing. So if there's movies continue, he could be brought back easily. Same with Varang. She flies off, so they could continue to be antagonists, if the series continues. And if not, it's like, okay, they won the day, right? This was kind of weird, though. In the third one, we get a narration again, but it's from Loak, because in the second movie, he encourages his brother Neteyam to help him rescue Spider, which leads to Neteyam's death. So, he's got guilt from that, and he's talking about that and being a disappointment and etc. But then at the end of the movie, he doesn't have the final line. The final line comes from Spider. It's not even from like Jake, who in the previous two movies always had a final line to be like, hey, now I'm one of the people, or it's my, whatever. Really weird that the final line is spoken by Spider. And it's like no shit or something like that, or oh shit, I think is the line. Really weird that Loak never has kind of like a we stick together or whatever kind of a thing. Odd choice to say the least. So overall, the third one, I liked the story idea in the third one a little more because it wasn't the same as the first movie, which The Way of Water was. I think The Way of Water, it again looks so good that it kind of bleeds into this one, that everything looks so good. Like in Fire and Ash, all the creature designs and everything like that, all the interactions, everything looks great. Like even you can tell like the jump between the 2009 and the 2022 Way of Water, like with Sully and Natiri, like just how much more of their facial features like work better as Navi and stuff like that. They just look so good. And of course, like you have a teenage Sigourney Weaver running around, and you could tell she looks the most CG because there's obviously de-aging and you know, all that kind of going on. But it still is incredible that there's a de-aged Sigourney Weaver Navi running around, and it doesn't like be like, oh, this is kind of, it's not out of place in the movie. But yeah, my main problem with the third one was just, again, how many times there's like a capture, reversal, capture, be like, come on in, Jake, you know, I got these people now. And then there's a scheme, and then there's a fight, and then they get away, and then there's, okay, come on. Like, it was just too much. Would be my main kind of criticism on this one. Interestingly, at least for me, despite the fact that they're both like 3:15 whatever running time, like the pacing was still good. Like it didn't feel like it dragged. It was just more like it felt like it should have started going to a main conclusion, because that's what I was saying, like with it almost feels like there are some ideas that could have been explored, but then they were cut, but then they have this extra like capture scene, and you're like, well, don't do that. Like do the other thing that you're kind of leaning towards. Because like with Varang and her people, we get the introduction, and then they kind of disappear from the movie after they land at the human city, and they're not involved until the final battle, really. But we don't really see, because like her kind of deal with Quaritch is that he's like, I know you want to spread your ideology, which is like, you know, AWA is bunk kind of thing, and, you know, fire and ash. She just like wants to burn stuff. So again, maybe that could be developed further along, but like they didn't do anything to try to advance that plan. Right? But whatever. Yeah, what else to say here? Let's see. I feel like I always forget. I guess at the end of the day, like, were these worth watching? Yes. I think, in particular, The Way of Water probably would have looked the best. Like, I have a very, you know, nice computer setup at home, blah, 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 but, like, I didn't see it in the theater. But I think that one would have looked really nice because there was so much more done in the daylight, in particular in all the water environments and stuff like that. And it continued into Fire and Ash, but there was a lot more Fire and Ash in the third one. But yeah, I didn't hate my time. I'm not one of those people where I'm like, that was the biggest waste of time and etc. But I'm also not like so praising of them that I think they're the pinnacle of filmmaking in story-wise. I think, again, like the tech and the achievement in that angle, it's incredible. It cannot be denied that like what they've done is just amazing. But from the story point where, you know, again, I know that, you know, they're meant to be a 4-quadrant broad kind of situation, so I'm not expecting like too deep, but there was like that next level that it could have gone to, or just, yeah, like cut, like in the third one in particular, like it's like you could have cut some of this capture stuff down and maybe had a shorter movie in the third one, and that would have been fine. But maybe audiences always expect, you know, these Avatar movies to be 3 hours long. I don't know. I wasn't expecting that. I was just like, whatever. But yeah, I don't know. It could have been more interesting in the third one in particular if, because they kind of do at the end when they get some of the Force people to come back, you know, to fight with Todok Makto and what have you, but they were really sidelined by them moving to the water, which was fine. And Neytiri goes back after she gets injured, and she goes to her home and, you know, gets help there and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't know. I know I'm a little rambling here at the moment, but I do think, yeah, they were worth watching. They I didn't hate them. I feel like, again, just like the motivation is way too muddled by the humans in what they want, because it kept on changing, and that wasn't like the stated goals like earlier. It was like I said, it was like, okay, we're unobtainium, we're here for that, cool. Then second movie, it's like, okay, we're here for this whale gel. But when did they discover that? I was trying to, I'm sure maybe it's in a comic or something like that, but I was looking on like the Pandorapedia or whatever, Pandora Wikipedia, and it just says like, oh, it was like a substance discovered by Dr. Garvin and blah blah blah, but it doesn't say like when. So it was like, were these whale attacks happening while the unobtainium stuff was happening from the first movie? Because I don't think so, because like humans left, so it was discovered in that 1 year period. But then again, like if we have cloning and consciousness transfer technology, we don't need that. So then in the third movie, they're like, no, we're coming because we want to colonize the planet. But like, we know the atmosphere is poisonous to us, which is fine. Like, you know, we could build space stations and moon bases, and I would assume an advanced sci-fi civilization, you know, like in the first movie, it is shown they have bases where we can walk around and stuff like that. So it's like we could colonize, but it would obviously be better if we could breathe the air. So yeah, like I said, just stuff like that where it's kind of like, oh, you're introducing this now, like the eclipse, and it was like, what? Where, like, it's not even mentioned. They're just like, oh yeah, the dark time and this and that, and you're like, our eclipses, at least again on our planet, are not a daily event. So you're like, wait, this happens every day? Like, we would have noticed that, I think. So yeah, there's just things like that where like some of the world building's a little muddled, and you're not supposed to think about it. You're supposed to be caught up in the wonder of Pandora, but then it's also kind of like, but isn't that what we're here for? I don't know. Like, even the fact that they brought Quaritch back, which I didn't know until I was watching the second movie, and they bring him back in his whole squad, and they bring him back as a Na'vi, and I was like, he hated the Na'vi. That was the whole point of the first movie. And then they're like, yeah, well, you know, now you can breathe and fight like the enemy and this and that. And I'm like, I still think he probably would have wanted to just be human and given the go-ahead to go do his punt as a human, right? Like, he would have been fine, right? Like, I would have been fine with that, too. You bring him back in his whole squad as a human, been like, hey, Jake killed you. Well, Neytiri did, but, you know, go get revenge. And it'd have been like, all right, like, that would have worked, too. And then, again, we could have had that technology versus nature battle, because he starts to use like the flying creatures and stuff like that because he has like the connector braid and stuff like that. So it's, I don't know, it's just like some of these ideas that are thrown in without like an extra, like, considering the amount of thought that's given to Pandora and its creatures and all of its evolution, and everything looks so good and belonging, that you're just like, some of these other things where you're just like, but why? Okay, anyway, Avatar, the 3 movies. Yeah, I think it's interesting, like I said, shotgunning them just that quickly, is it kind of reveals some of these things about it, especially doing Way of Water and Fire and Ash back to back, which I assume, because of the way the storytelling is meant to be viewed in that kind of way, that there's just so much duplication in them, where you would think like the follow-up sequel would not have to do some of these things to continue on its way. Like when Jake gets captured, I was like, all right, cool, we're like doing a different thing. He gets captured versus his kids, right? And he's brought to the human base, and it's like, okay, he's wearing like a prison uniform, and he keeps on telling Quaritch, he's like, hey, look, you might not be Quaritch really, because we don't know. You're in a Na'vi body. He's like, you don't have to be human. Like, he's like, Pandora is so much different than you think, but you just have to change your thinking. And he kind of keeps hammering that point, and Quaritch, of course, just kind of refuses, even when he meets Farang and stuff like that, and she has another take on it. It's still like a Pandoran viewpoint, but he still is like not really like involved. So again, maybe that could be further growth down the line. but it's just kind of like, I was like, oh yeah, like this is interesting, like let's get some of this kind of stuff going, and then it just cuts, and then we're into the other beats and stuff like that. So oddly done. I feel like if they were gonna do 2 more, like they've talked about, that he could get them done quicker now, right? Because the tech has advanced to a point where they can do them quicker now, and so that would be to the, that'd be good to the series versus this huge gap of more than a decade. That it's just like, hey, we can get these rolling as long as there's a good script and we get, we have the cast, we could do this. So I hope they do. I would be interested to see it continue, and I think, yeah, cut them down a bit. 2.5 hours, if you go that length, is still a long movie, right? And I think then it would cost a little less, and you can make your story a little tighter without having to kind of fill it with some of these extra scenes, and that would be fine. But okay, I've rambled enough. Yeah, thoughts on Avatar. If you have any thoughts on Avatar, you want to share them with me, you can comment, send me an email, tomeofuselessness@gmail.com. Questions, topic suggestions as well. I'd love to hear from you. I check it every day. You can also go to our website, Tome of Uselessness. Same name for if you're searching for us on Spotify, Apple, and all that kind of good stuff. We're out there for episodes with Devin and myself and other content. But yeah, have a great day and thanks for listening.